Today we're reading from, again, Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 8. We'll cover verses 28 and 29. Being 28 is a little shorter. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. Normally when it's time for Krishna Katha, the number of devotees that come are much less. If we were serving prasadam, the room would be full. But fortunately for us, taking prasadam and listening to Srimad Bhagavatam have equal spiritual potencies. So those that are not here will benefit at breakfast and lunch. Tatatra pihama atmano mrigatva Tatrata pihava atmano mrigatva Karanam bhagavad adradhana Karano bhagavad adradhana Samitanu bhavenenu smritya brisam Anutapyanam aha Samitanu Bhavenanu smritam brisam Anutapyanamanam aha Anutapyamananam aha. Someone else? Someone else? Atmano Magadava Karmanam Bhagavad Adradhanam Sanihanu Bhagave Vanu Nasmaritaya Someone else? Mataji's? Trata pihava matmano marigatva Karmano Anutrapmatnananaha. I was reading recently where Srila Prabhupada was discussing the differences between Sanskrit and other languages. Most languages, they are limited to a certain number of characters to complete the word. But he said that in Sanskrit, to describe certain things, there may be 1,000 characters to describe that one object. So in this case here, we can see this is quite long. It's longer than a normal word, but he said up to 1,000 characters can be used to describe. So that's how complete Sanskrit is. So we'll read the word for word. Tatra api, in that birth. Hava, indeed. Atmanaha, of himself. Mrigatva karanam, the cause of accepting the body of a deer. Bhagavata anubhavena, I'm sorry, adradhana samiha, of past activities in devotional service. Anubhavena, by consequence. Anusmritya, remembering. Brisam, always. Anutapyamanaha, repeating. Aha, said. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he was constantly repenting his activities, speaking in the following way. So let's please repeat this. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities, speaking in the following way. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. This is a special concession for a devotee. Even if he attains a body that is non-human, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he advances further in devotional service, whether by remembering his past life or by natural causes. It is not easy for a common man to remember the activities of his past life, but Bharat Maharaj could remember his past activities due to his great sacrifice and engagement in devotional service. So we're also going to read the next verse. I'll just read the translation and the purport. In the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj began to lament, "What misfortune! I have fallen from the path of self-realized. I gave up my real son, wife, and home to advance in spiritual life, and I took shelter in a solitary place in the forest. I became self-controlled and self-realized, and I engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing, thinking, chanting, worshiping, and was successful in my attempt, so much so that my mind was always absorbed in devotional service. However, due to my personal foolishness, my mind again became attached to this deer. Now I have obtained the body of a deer and have fallen far away from my devotional practices." Purport. Due to his stringent execution of devotional service, Maharaj Bharat could remember the activities of his past life and how he was raised to the spiritual platform. Due to his foolishness, he became attached to an insignificant deer and thus fell down and had to accept the body of a deer. This is significant for every devotee. If we misuse our position and think that we are fully engaged in devotional service and can do whatever we like, we have to suffer like Bharat Maharaj and be condemned to accept the type of body that impairs our devotional service. Only the human form is able to execute devotional service. But if we voluntarily give up this body for sense gratification, we certainly have to be punished. This punishment is not exactly like that endured by ordinary materialistic persons. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee is punished in such a way that his eagerness to attain the lotus feet of the Lord Vasudeva is increased. By his intense desire, he returns home in the next lifetime. Devotional service is completely described here. Tad anusran navam manam. The constant hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Satanam kirtanam yatanas chadrid vartaha. Those who have taken to Krishna consciousness should be very careful that not a single moment is wasted and that not a single moment is spent without chanting and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his activities. By his own actions and by the actions of his devotees, Krishna teaches us how to become cautious in devotional service. Through the medium of Bharat Maharaj, Krishna teaches us that we must keep our minds completely fixed without deviation. We must engage them in devotional service full time. As far as members of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness are concerned, they have sacrificed everything to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. Yet they must take a lesson from the life of Bharat Maharaj to be very cautious and to see that not a single moment is wasted in frivolous talk, sleep, or voracious eating. Eating is not prohibited, but if we eat voraciously, we shall certainly sleep more than is required. Sense gratification ensues, and we may be degraded to a lower form. In that way, our spiritual progress may be checked, at least for the time being. The best course is to take the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami. We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for rendering devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home back to Godhead. Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chaksusummiljana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Madhurabhristam Srapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Maya Paratne Swaparante Sam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatabhata Kamala Shri Guru Vaishnavansham Sadvaitam Sadvaidutam Prishana Chaitang Krishna Chaitanya Devam. So Prabhupada was very deliberately being very stern in this description. Again, we should be thankful to Vasudeva, who wrote this literature in such a way, story-like forms, very descriptive, that even less intelligent people, unfortunately all of us are in that category of less intelligent. However, we have some intelligence because we are sitting here today. And these stories are descriptive narrations in order for us to stimulate our intelligence and become successful in our mission. So we can see that here Bharat Maharaj, who was a great, powerful king, so much so that the entire world, Shri Radhe Shyam, Krishna Balaram, Nitai Gaur, Haribo. He had inherited the kingdom from his father, Rishabdev, who was also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Out of so many sons, Bharat Maharaj was chosen to rule the world because his sense of righteousness was greater than that of all of his brothers. During his reign of king, the world was very peaceful. The lands were producing sufficient grains, sufficient foodstuffs. The trees were filled with fruits. Everything was very harmonious. I was listening to a tape yesterday saying that the earth would produce grains. We would husk the grains and eat the fruit of that grain. But then the byproduct is the shaft or the grass on which that grain has come. And this would be given to the animals. They would also become satisfied. With fruits, we peel the fruits. We eat the nectar of the meat of the fruit that's inside. And then again, this byproduct, the waste of this, is distributed to the animals. And they eat, and they are also happy. So in King Bharat's kingdom, this is how life was. Everyone was completely satisfied. Nobody was in want of anything. All of their needs and necessities for life were taken care of. But if we look at our modern day leaders, they are always trying to fill our minds and our hearts with fear. Out of fear, they are controlling us. Who is your enemy? Pakistan. The government of Pakistan and the government in India have been at odds for years and years and years. And they are telling us, oh yes, they are our enemy. We must be very mindful of them. And in this way, the governments can control us. America. Now America has so many enemies. Everyone. And the government is saying, yes, these are our enemies. So therefore, we must produce sophisticated weapons in which to fight or defend ourselves against any uncertain attacks by these enemies. And in this way, they control us. So Bharat Maharaj was a very pious and a very worthy king, All of his progeny loved him. It's described that he ruled for 10,000 times 1,000 years. That comes to be, how many years is that? 10 million years. He ruled his kingdom. And at a certain time, he realized, just like his father Rishabdev, it was time to give up this control, this ruling, and prepare himself for leaving this material world. He had several sons. He divided all of his kingdom equally amongst all of his sons, and without hesitation gave up all of his opulence. Living as a king, all of his needs were taken care of. He wore golden crowns, had jewels of diamonds and gold, fine silken garments, maid servants, beautiful wife, big palace, and a kingdom of people that truly loved him. But realizing that these things were actually deterrents from the path of self-realization, he gave these up and he left to find a solitude place where he could meditate and engage in devotional service. He went to Pula Ashram, which is near Rishikesh in Hardwar. He found a solitude place there and began his regimen of sadhana, practicing devotional service. He was very strict in this process of practicing devotional service, bathing 3 times a day. He had a bushy, curly, long batch of hair that was always wet with water because of his taking bath 3 times a day. He had a golden complexion of his body, and he chose this particular place for performing devotional service because there Lord Narayan was especially merciful to all of those yogis who went there to practice devotional service and engage in worshiping him. His life changed dramatically from being catered to as a king. His wants and needs were always provided to him by his servants, but as a mendicant living in the forest, he had to begin foraging for himself. But because the earth was prosperous and peaceful and happy, there was an abundance of trees with fruits and vegetables growing on the ground, roots that could be eaten, and plenty of fresh water for him to drink and bathe in. So in this way, all of these simple needs were taken care of. He would gather these objects, and unlike normal people immediately begin to stuff them in their mouths, he would sacrifice and offer them to Lord Narayan. In this way, his daily activities were completely engaged from morning until night when he took rest in devotional service of the Lord. Just like how Srila Prabhupada explains in the end of this second verse of the purport, how we as devotees should be engaged constantly. We have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Sevanam, Archanam, all of these different processes which we can engage ourselves in. Why? In order to control our senses, in order to control our mind, in order to allow our intelligence to be focused on the sole purpose of this human form of life. What is that? The sole purpose of the human form of life is what? Huh? Yes. The sole purpose of these human forms of life is to make inquiries into who am I? Where have I come from? Why am I here? And most importantly, how to get out. Who is the creator of this material world? Being able to distinguish between matter and spirit. So his mind was clear. He was engaged in devotional service. He lived in a solitude place. He thought that his life had reached perfection, but the material energy is very tricky. Maya always has something more up her sleeve in order to entrap and keep all of us here in this material world. Unfortunately for Bharat Maharaj, it came in the form of a deer. We've read the story how a she deer or a doe came to take water. At the same time, a lion was present, and the roar of that lion caused her to drop the baby deer that she was carrying prematurely, and she ran for her life to escape from the deer. But Bharat Maharaj, he took compassion, and compassion is a quality of someone in the mode of goodness. He took compassion on this poor, helpless little deer and took this deer under his shelter and began to nourish that deer, feeding it, keeping it close to him to protect it from all other dangers that exist in the forest. And what happened? His consciousness changed. His attention was focused not on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but on this little deer. So, where do we see this in material life? We are born into this material world, and as we mature, we go through the different developments or the stages of developing in our bodies, and at a certain stage of life, most people, they want to get married. They want to have a partner. They want to have sex. And as a result of this desire and of these wantings, there's the byproduct of a child. And what happens to their focus? My focus was on devotional service, but now my focus is on this little baby. Oh, Gucci Goo, how are you? Everything. The baby can do nothing but cry, pass stool in his diapers, and sleep, and demand food. But we're so proud of every little advancement that this child makes. Oh, look, today the baby's smiling. Oh, yes, and he's saying goo goo. Oh, he's going to be great. He's so smart. This is a trick of the material energy. And this is the same trick that she used on Bharat Maharaj, giving him this deer. He had already left his family, his wife, his kingdom, his wealth. All of that was gone, but she was able to lure him back by a little deer. Sweet, cute little deer with beautiful doe eyes and soft, furry skin. And this way his attachment each day grew greater and greater and greater until he was completely absorbed in the caring for that deer. But the deer is a byproduct of the material energy. And the deer has its own wants and desires and needs. So at a certain time, this deer left Bharat Maharaj. And this threw him into great anxiety. Oh, just like a child in your home. Your child reaches a certain age and they want to leave. They want to fly from the nest as the birds do in the trees. And then the parents begin to lament. Oh, my child is gone. Whoa, what am I going to do now? What to do? Blah, 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 blah. But for them, fortunately, soon they have a grandchild. And then the material energy pulls them back again. Oh, my grandchild. Yes, now look at him. He's even more cute than my baby was when he was a baby. Oh, they keep getting cuter and cuter and cuter. But for Bharat Maharaj, he was concerned about, oh, where is this deer? There are so many ferocious animals in these woods that can devour him. What to do? What to do? Oh, my poor deer. And we all know that time and tide waits for no one. And eventually, it was time for Bharat Maharaj to leave his body. All of his training, all of his endeavors to reach spiritual perfection were put on hold because at the time of death, he was thinking of that deer. And so therefore, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever state of consciousness one is in when they leave this body, they will attain to that state in their next life. So, due to his foolishness, due to his material attachment to this other living entity, he was forced to take birth as a deer. The Lord was very was very merciful to Bharat Maharaj, allowing him to remember his previous life, even in the form of a deer. The natural causes of birth and death are that all of our memories are erased when we leave these bodies. The only thing we take with us is our desires. And these desires determine what type of bodies we are going to receive in our next life. So, in one way or another, everyone in this assembly had performed devotional service in their previous lives. And when it reaches a mature state, we begin to take up our devotional service again. Some of us are young, so therefore that spark of devotional service, that desire to go back to the kingdom of God, begins at a younger age in our life. Some of us are older, and that spark has taken longer to ignite. But with all of us here, once that spark and that desire to go back to the kingdom of God manifests itself, it becomes our obligation to follow the principles, just as Prabhupada says here, how one should be engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service, not overeating. On occasions I go to the Prasadam hall and I sit. Normally they give a special table for senior devotees. I sit and I watch you younger devotees eating, and sometimes your plates are filled like this, big, full mounds of rice and vegetables and 8 or 10 chapatis, and you're eating and eating and eating, and you had just done the same thing 3 hours earlier at breakfast time. So what happens here? What does it say happens when one overeats? One oversleeps. And then from this sleepiness, this overeating, lust develops. Prabhupada says it's like a pushing sensation. The mind sees the food and the body says, okay, let's enjoy as much as possible. And then the belly becomes full. And then from the belly there's a pushing sensation down to the genital region. And then once this happens, we lose control. Lust takes over our intelligence, and we become entrapped again in the material existence. I know in India there are people who keep dogs in their homes as pets, not like in the West, where everybody has a dog, a little cute little dog, sometimes 5 or 6 dogs. Some people like the big dog because it's macho, makes them look tough. But they have these little dogs and they care for them and they pet them and they share their ice cream cone with the dog. You take some, okay, I take some, okay. Little puppy, nice puppy, oh, my baby dog. Some people are so attached to their pets that they will leave their fortunes to their dog. There are many cases. One woman in New York who was a land baron died recently, and she left $100 million to her doggie. And there was a special house and special servants who were there daily to care for the needs of that little dog. So, even though this woman had attained great wealth in her lifetime, what type of body do you think she's in right now? Right? She's in a dog's body, sniffing another dog's butt and hoping that someone won't kick her. And she could be born as a dog here in India. It's not a dog where someone's going to love and care for her. She could be here where people throw rocks and sticks, and the dogs are always in fear of being beaten by these people. But fortunately for Bharat Maharaj, he was able, even in that deer's body, to remember his past life, his spiritual activities. And what did he do? He lamented. He lamented for his misbehavior of not utilizing the one gift that is given to humans that is not given to any other creature in the material existence. What is that gift that we are given? Huh? Yes, well, we are given intelligence. Dogs and cats and other living entities are, by the laws of nature, forced to act in a certain capacity. You will never see a dog acting like a kangaroo. They always act like a dog. And they have no ability to reason and ask questions. By the laws of nature, they are forced to act in this capacity. But in the human form of life, we have this ability to get out. It's the loophole. 8,400,000 species of life in the material existence. In the human form of life, we are given intelligence, and how that intelligence is used determines our future. Modern day intelligence means having a PhD, some fine job at some communications company, some computer company, working for a big conglomerate, and thinking that you're intelligent. For myself, for many years, I taught at a university, and I always found it very strange and humorous that in the mornings before our classes began, the other professors would be sitting there, and they would be patting each other on the back, saying, "Oh, you're such a wonderful scholar, you know so much." And they're teaching some mundane science like etymology. What is etymology? The study of bugs. "Oh, you're a great scholar, you know so much. You know every kind of ant that's crawling around on the